I see people able to get people off slowly, not everybody. And also it depends on the dose that you start off and how you start off. Is your gut in shape? Are your detox pathways great? Did you do all of these things before you got on them? And then you're probably going to be on a lower dose possibly in the first place, or you can titrate off.
I gotta get myself a little more faith, a little more love.
I'm your host, Krista Bigler, and I'm going to guess we have at least one thing in common, that we're both in pursuit of a less stressed life. On this show, I'll be interviewing experts and sharing clinical pearls from my years of practice to support high-performing, health-savvy women in pursuit of abundance and a less stressed life. One of my beliefs is that we always have options for getting the results we want, so let's see what's out there together.
All right, today on The Less Stressed Life, I have Shefaly Ravula, which I just talked to her about pronunciation, so hopefully I am on the right track. Perfect. She is a visionary founder of Precision Gut Health, a virtual telehealth practice on a mission to unlock the secrets of gut health, metabolic balance, and longevity. At the heart of her practice lies a powerful fusion of culinary medicine, advanced labs, and a profound commitment to digestive and metabolic health optimization. She's dedicated to guiding patients toward a future where gut health and longevity are intricately entwined and where vibrant health is not just a destination, but a lifelong journey. Oh, it's just so happy. It's like a bedtime story. So welcome to the show.
Thank you. I know it sounded pretty long there, but it could have gone longer.
Yeah, it could have gone longer. Okay, so we're talking about something pretty exciting today, pretty trendy. We're talking about GLP-1 production, antagonists, all the things. So before we jump into that, just give us a little snapshot of how you ended up where you are now. I know you're a PA. So how did you end up working in this field of, let's call it functional medicine? Sometimes we assign different names to it, but tell us a little bit how you landed here first, and then we'll talk about GLP-1s.
Yeah, I always call it a circuitous path because I'm straight out of grad school as a PA, get this job working oddly in very niche bone marrow transplantable. But I learned a lot of great critical care skills and inpatient hospital medicine, et cetera. But my dad, I was paged. This is before cell phones. Got paged. He was having a heart attack. And basically, fast forward 20 years, I got into the field of nutrition on my own, self-taught really for the most part over the many years, which then led me to functional medicine and lifestyle medicine. And then ultimately taking aspects of all of it, like precision health, functional medicine, a little bit of longevity, genomics. I love how you said we label these in different ways, but really all of it is about finding the root cause and really working on lifestyle measures, honestly. So that's the short version. There were different paths in there. I became a culinary instructor for a long time, had a catering thing, and then food, did all of that, and then worked in GI for a long time, conventional allopathic GI, which is, I love that I have that as a background because it's just really eye-opening, obviously, because of nutrition and functional medicine and gut health. And then I did do a few years in metabolic health in urology. So lots of different pieces.
Yeah. I want to ask you before we jump in, because it will be connected to our overall conversation. You worked in conventional gastroenterology, and now you're working in essentially functional GI. And I bring this down to, I feel like in conventional GI, we're very good at structural diagnostics in evaluation. And in functional, it's different. How was that for you a little bit? Do you feel after you started learning things and applying them in functional medicine, how did you feel about your time in conventional GI? I'm just very curious, just because we're almost not necessarily at odds, but there could be more synergy.
Yeah. And I love that I have that background because I feel blessed that I do have that synergy with many of the local practitioners that are conventional medicine that are open-minded to thinking about sending patients to me because they know, I suppose they're comfortable because they know that I have that allopathic background and I know when to refer or when somebody needs imaged, when somebody needs diagnostics that I can't do in a virtual practice. But I will say it was challenging. So I became a culinary instructor for a while. I was like a stay-at-home mom. So I did that for a while. And I wasn't in allopathic GI at the time. I had done that already and stayed home. And then I said, I've learned so much about nutrition and functional medicine. I want to bring, and my kids were older. I'm like, I miss being a PA. I miss that clinical expert, that using that part of my brain. And I wanted to bring food as medicine. Really, it was food as medicine that I wanted to bring to the GI practice. So I went back, same practice, different location. And I said, this is on my resume. I have all this training and this expertise in culinary medicine and nutrition. And I want to bring that especially to like IBS and GERD and IBD and fatty liver and all the things that we see every day in GI. And it didn't work. I rejoined the practice, tried it for a few years. I had a decent amount as a PA. Usually we have a little bit more extra time. We're still seeing 10, 15 patients, 10, 12 patients a day, maybe not 30. So I had the time, but I could just stick in little blurbs here. Oh, I want you to have, it's not enough. It's not enough time. And it's certainly not still addressing the root cause. Anyway, that's a long-winded way of saying it didn't work as well as I wanted it to. And I wanted to offer so much more. Right. And so that's why
I know. I love how you say 10 to 12 patients, you had time to do more than those who had 30, because you don't hear that subjective opinion very often on this show. But to your point, I always say to people, like, don't be mad at your doctor. He's barely got time to see you. It's not the way he or she wants to see you.
Yeah.
So
absolutely. And they're run also by the insurance model. And it's such a complicated thing, just even seeing you as a patient, but then directing your care and how we're all parsed out now in medicine. You've got the specialists and the specialists, and no one's talking to each other. And that's what we do. We bring it so that we're like your tree trunk. And ideally that would be like a really strong integrative or functional medicine primary care practice that can then help you figure out and navigate where to go. But then at the end of the day, that person is still helping you solve the root cause.
Yeah, I love this. Okay, cool. So we're going to talk about a pretty hot topic today, which is GLP-1. If someone has not been paying attention to what's on the news, throw out some flash words that they might be familiar with, the medications that are GLP-1, whatever. Let's just talk about hot topic. Give us a little GLP-1 101 if people aren't sure that they've heard it before we get into the nitty-gritty.
Yeah, absolutely. And to preface this, I'm not a board certified obesity medicine practitioner. That's a whole board certification, but I've had some training there. I've done their whole courseware years ago before these meds were approved. And these medications I'm talking about are GLP-1 agonists. And they are like brands like Ozempic, Wegovy, Mounjaro, and non-branded would be semaglutide, tirzepatide. I learned about these some years ago, actually, when I was mentioning that I was working in the urology practice doing metabolic health. So lots of low testosterone patients, males, women too, infertility, all those things. But I was doing their functional nutrition and really some functional medicine. And so I really realized that there was a role for these medications in some people, because if you have a BMI and that's pretty high and people won't operate on your knee because of the risk of being that significantly with morbid obesity, and the orthopedic surgeon is saying, I want you to walk, you need a surgery, you need knee surgery, but I'm not going to be safely able to do that on you. So it's just a catch-22, right? So these people were left very suffering. And so I wanted to really open my mind and educate myself about the physiology of obesity, which is a disease, and also understanding the pharmacology behind it. Not only bariatric surgery as a tool, but all the other things. So that's how I got introduced to them. Those are the drugs now. Fast forward, they're more than they were just indicated for diabetes because of what we saw with blood sugar reduction. And now in the last year, and a lot more than that, now they're approved certainly for obesity. So that's the medication. Do you want to talk about like how it works?
Let's talk about how it works. And then also, is there anything sticky going on in the current landscape with these medications? Like, why did they just become hot? Is it because they were approved for obesity? Is that why?
Yes. Yeah, that's why. Yeah. So they're FDA approved, right? And so then depending on the indication, you could get insurance approval for them. And so then they're affordable. But the problem was short supply. And this has been an issue before for other brands too, a short supply and demand concern with the various brands. And so we're here now having an issue with a short supply and all. I believe my understanding with the short supply is related to the actual pens and not the medicine itself, but don't quote me that. That's what I've been recently hearing about from the various practitioners out there that are using these widely for various other non-obesity related things as well. And so compounding pharmacies are being utilized to be able to deliver the medications because they're in short supply from the companies. So the sticky points, to answer your question, there's so many. First of all, weight, it's a very tricky topic and it has a lot of stigma. And certainly in the dietetic community, I have a lot of peers and mentors in the dietetic space that I very much admire and respect. And so many people are very much of the mindset that, let's go back a little bit. I think for a long time, even in functional medicine and certainly in nutrition, there was a stigma against using these medications. Oh my God, you're using these medications. You need to do the lifestyle stuff first. Or why should you be using it for just 20 pounds of weight gain? And there's just a lot of shame and judgment just all around. And there always has been with weight, right? So these are sticky points with the GLP-1s and the use of them. And Dr. David Allison did an excellent job. If anybody has a chance to listen to this podcast on Dr. Peter Attia's podcast, he was the guest. He's an epidemiologist, so he understands the lack of nutrition science out there, but he also understands public health. So I like the marrying of the two and understanding that we just don't know a lot about the medicines in terms of safety after we know safety data for 10 years, but do we know 40 years? No. But we do have some safety data to make it so that, okay, what's the pro-con list of using these medications? And that's really meant to be a discussion between provider and patient or practitioner and patient. Like it is very nuanced. There's so many things at play. It's your gut health. It's your goal. It's aesthetics, your metabolic health by far. So many things that come into play when we're trying to make a decision about using these.
Yeah. So when people go on the GLP-1 medications like Ozempic, is there a time that people are usually coming off, or is this sort of a ongoing thing at the moment?
If you look at how obesity is a disease and the physiology of it, the idea is that you get to a point where you've reached a metabolic set point. And so your body is fighting hard against weight loss. So this is probably why some people that do everything or try everything, life, exercise, diet, nutrition, etc., sleep, stress, is some of those last two, most people don't always do. But the top two, I feel like, are things that people feel empowered to work on, and they try various things. Oh, I did the keto. Oh, I did Prolon. Oh, I did some macro counting. Oh, I exercised at Orange Theory 5 days a week, or whatever it is. They might lose some, but then they get to a stopping point, right? And or they regain it if they go off of a particular pattern. So the way I'm digressing, your question was what again, Krista?
Oh, it was just once people go on, do they come off? Is there a plan?
Yeah. So because it's a pharmacotherapy agent, it's a medication. I think I know the thinking is obesity is a disease. So you treat the obesity with a medication. So how could you come off of it if you're treating your disease? They equate it to, okay, I'm specifically talking about people that are in the field of obesity medicine. And I don't quite agree with this fully because of our functional medicine background. But the idea that like if you have high blood pressure and you're on a medication, you're not just going to go off of it. But in our world of functional medicine, natural medicine, and nutrition, we can sometimes get people off medications because we work on all the other things, and it's a slow process, but it's possible. Weight's a little tricky, and I think it's so complex. We're looking at hormones and perimenopause and andropause and thyroid and everything else. So it's not that simple. Like maybe high blood pressure is a little bit more simple, I think, or acid reflux is actually even more simple.
Yeah, for sure.
So I think that, yes, I see people able to get people off slowly. Not everybody. And also it depends on the dose that you start off and how you start off. Is your gut in shape? Are your detox pathways great? Did you do all of these things before you got on them? And then you're probably going to be on a lower dose possibly in the first place, or you can titrate off.
Yeah. I would say to answer those questions, is your gut health great and is your detox pathways optimized? The answer is usually no, typically. Right. The answer for the average human be hard for them to have those things optimized unless they fully. I'm just saying maybe I have a pretty skewed view of that, but I think it's true. So GLP-1 this is a hormone that's already occurring in the body that impacts carbohydrate metabolism.
Right.
So when we're taking the medication, it's just filling in, is it almost like hormone replacement therapy? Probably not so much like a synthetic hormone replacement.
Yeah. It's a peptide. So GLP-1 is a peptide, right? But here's the big difference. And this is what I wanted to really talk about today with you is like our innate GLP-1 and what that really means compared to taking the medication. And they're very different in the sense of the dose. So what we produce in our body is fairly short acting and acts upon times that we eat. So we produce it in the intestines from the L cells, and there's a whole GLP-1 pathway that involves parts of the microbiome like Akkermansia and Bifido and other prebiotics that help feed forward that cycle, plus many other parts of that pathway. If we are making our own, there's so much we don't know about this, right? So if we make our own, we know that we make probably small amounts that help us feel full. So that's one of the functions. And then certainly with that carbohydrate metabolism that you talked about. But the doses for medications are super dosed, right? So standard, FDA approved are super dosed. Ozempic and Mounjaro. Mounjaro has GIP-1 in it also, not just GLP-1. So it's a combo drug. That is why they're working. That's why they work so well, because they're super dosed and they do work well. They work fast. I have concerns about that. I have concerns about rapid weight loss from anything, as you probably do, Christelle. We see some of the ramifications of that. And I certainly see that in the longevity space. Long term, you would be concerned about rapid weight loss for various reasons. We can go into that later if you want to.
Okay. So with our innate GLP-1 production, it's just very different because it's these small little pieces. And so we don't really know how we feel about that. We just know that when we're medicating, we're not really doing it like the body does. Right. So that's the takeaway there. Let's talk about, should we be promoting more GLP-1 production? How can you do it?
Yeah. And you could title that question or talk any which way, because the answer is the same. Eat more fiber. Eat more colorful fruits and vegetables. Eat more natural whole foods that come in their most pure form that you can possibly get from the ground. Really, fiber is an answer for a lot of things. However, of course, if you just have gut issues, so if you are somebody that goes to your doctor and has bloating and loose stools or not regular bowel movements or undigested food in the stool or fat in the stool or you name it, any GI issue that you feel like either you've been dealing your whole life and you think it's normal, which it's not, or somebody in the allopathic world is telling you, oh, it's just IBS or it's just aging. Trust your gut. That's like my bottom message. Like, trust your gut and be your own advocate. But at the same time, you do need to lean on your professionals. You can't take everything in control, but you do want someone that's open-minded, that has a bi-directional relationship with you, that's listening to you. So I was going off on a tangent, but if you have those gut issues, it's not so easy for you to do eating all the fiber and eating the probiotics and prebiotics and polyphenols, because you might not tolerate them. So you have to get that fit.
Yeah, but you can later. And I will say about fiber is a prebiotic, but not all prebiotics are fibers. And when you talk about these colorful vegetables, you're talking about polyphenols, and polyphenols are prebiotics, and they are very rich prebiotics. And also, let's not discount amazing fresh spices as being such a useful piece of polyphenols. So these are just like magical. And I was going to say, I'm going to reiterate in different words just to make sure this lands for people.
Yeah.
It's great. We think prebiotics, the definition, I believe, is that you're supposed to selectively feed good bacteria. But when you sit down with microbiome professionals, we agree that they are not tolerated by people with massive gut imbalances or digestive issues, et cetera. And so you just, again, to reiterate what you said, you have to figure out what is the problem before that, why you're not digesting that particular thing. It's the same reason why people are not digesting carbs or feel worse after sometimes eating carbs, et cetera.
Absolutely. Yep.
It's funny because the GLP-1 improves carbohydrate metabolism, right? And so this is literally, honestly, my entire life. This should work, but you need to do this other step first. And the whole cycle can work just better, right?
That's right.
And I think about butyrate must be involved in this as well, which is fiber plus good bacteria in the gut. Make sure fatty acids. I don't know enough about GLP-1s.
Oh, they were
Not like something popular we learned about before.
No, I know. Now they're all popular. So butyrate, as we know, is fuel for the enterocytes, the colon cells. And so the only cell in the body that uses, most other cells use glucose for fuel, and colon cells, enterocytes, use butyrate. So that's how important butyrate is. And butyrate triggers like the G protein coupled receptors to release GLP-1 from those intestinal L cells from them in the mucin layer. So there's a direct correlation. So then people say, why don't we give butyrate? Butyrate also, we have to look at that whole pathway. And I think this is what's like cutting edge, and we don't know a lot about it. But akkermansia helps. It's acting on the GLP-1 pathway, but it's also helping make the butyrate and helping deliver it. Pendulum is
I was going to ask you about this.
Yeah,
actually. People ask about this all the time. They're like, should I be taking? They must listen to a podcast and learn about akkermansia being this keystone bacterial strain that's important for everything. And I think this is what happens when we start to study an individual thing in the body. It's like, wow, this thing is magic. I know. I think a lot of stuff in the body is just magic, actually, is how it feels.
Yeah. And everybody, we all want that magic pill or that magic supplement and that magic one. But we don't know enough yet, you guys, to single-handedly put all our effort and money into an akkermansia product. Now, that being said, their research is super awesome. I think they were able to actually grow the organism, and they did a great trial, and people's A1C went down in their trial, but they're using a very specific formula. A lot of these companies, I wanted to talk about this because navigating the supplement space with GLP-1s is hard now because so many people, the Kardashians, somebody just came out with one, and hers has, I looked this up because it just came out in preparation for talking to you today. It has blood orange extract from Sicily, and then it has saffron, the world's most expensive spice, and it has lemon. So it may be some specific brand.
Polyphenols.
Species of lemon. Yes. So, okay, do you do that? Do you do the akkermansia? Do you do the butyrate too? And do I have to buy extra fiber powders too? Like, you could spend so much money on this. There's nothing wrong with it, you guys. I'm not anti any of that. And I just think it can be supplement overwhelm, especially if you already have to work on other things in your body, physiology, sleep or adaptogens or whatever. The other thing is try to do a food first approach, but it's not always feasible. So yeah, I'm not going to blame you if you want to take a few supplements here. You do what you need to do, but you need to work with somebody that's going to listen to you too and meet you where you're at in your lifestyle too. Not everybody, I have stellar patients that do not fit what you were talking about with them not having I have 50% of my practice is like that healthy, super healthy person that lives on a farm and grows everything and is in vitamin D all day long and doing all the things that then their labs aren't great. And then the other half is basically the vice versa of that. Everybody, we got to meet you where you're at. That's the bottom line.
Totally. Yeah. And this kind of, I'm going to talk about a little bit about how you support those things naturally for a moment. But this kind of goes back to why I think weight loss is secondary anyway, because it's okay. Your body would make butyrate if it had good bacteria in the gut and you gave it fiber. It'll make GLP-1 if you give it fiber. It'll make akkermansia if you give it red polyphenols or red plant foods. So it's all the same message. We're just trying to make it sexier, and we're trying to shortcut the process and jump straight to the result, which is very human. I totally understand. I also want to do that all the time because I'm also a human. But I'm just reminding us that those things are there. And sometimes, for me, when I am reminded of that sexy detail about polyphenols, I'm like, oh yes, I must get back to microplaning some lemon peel in my water or in my food or whatnot, right? Like, it's just like the magic is right here already.
Yes, it is. And it is hard to remember all the things.
You got to make it enjoyable and a ritual slowly, very slowly.
Yes. And tasty.
And reminded. Yes, I know. That's the most important thing. And on this point, once upon a time, I went to a spice shop and they had all freeze-dried spices and it was so delicious. I went home and got rid of all my other spices and replaced them. And they're more expensive, but I know because they're so rich in they're so much better for polyphenols. I'm like, I feel like I'm like making my food taste amazing and getting much better nutrition. And it feels like a big, easy button all the way around.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up the healing spices because people don't think that they need the fresh, and the dried have very high ORAC scores, the ORAC score with I can't remember exactly what antioxidant level. I think it's a compounded antioxidant. We should look that up maybe and live for later, maybe for your show notes. But I covered that in one of my Food is Medicine Academy classes. But it's even just a little bit of dried oregano, throw it on there, dried rosemary. That's totally fine. It makes it taste good. So do it.
get yourself a mother-in-law with a freeze dryer and life. She brought me some freeze dried herbs the other day, and I'm already ordering freeze dried herbs, but so good, so good.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're like cracking through our list on GLP-1, right? We talked about the medications. We've talked about foods. Do you think we've covered foods okay that support?
Pretty much, yeah. I do want to mention bitters. We don't want to forget about bitters. I got my
bitters.
dandy tea right here, my dandelion root tea. It's bitter. And it might be an acquired taste for some, but I think we are probably fail with our children in not allowing them to taste bitter foods by covering up their medicines with whatever it is. So I think we outgrew our bitter receptors over time. So you have to bring them back. Make sure you have some bitters. It stimulates all kinds of great things in your GI tract, upper gut, lower gut, everything, but does help probably with the GLP-1 as well.
Yeah. I love fennel seeds, cardamom. Do you have favorite bitters as well? I love arugula and lemon or all such.
Well, food, I love arugula because I don't find it bitter, and I do love radicchio. But for a drinkable bitter, I do like dandelion root tea. It's strong. I use the traditional medicinals brand, and it's steep it for a while, and but it's pretty strong.
There's a brand of tea, I think it's Good Earth teas, and they make like sweet and spicy and a chai tea, and they're some of the strongest teas I've ever had, and I think those are wonderful.
Well, I was going to say, one thing I don't want our listeners to, at least my perspective on using the medication is that I'm not against it. I'm just not against using these medications right now. I think we have enough safety data, but I know it's limited, not that many years. But we have to figure out, like, what's your tipping point as a person? I think people mention that they get really annoyed by people using GLP-1s for modest weight loss, but it's tricky because are we going to judge the person for going to get a nose job? I feel like that's getting less judgment and shame than somebody wanting to use a medication for weight loss when they are hitting metabolic set points, and they might also have biomarkers that are completely off, like an elevated HSCRP or blood sugar problems, et cetera. I don't want anyone to go take these medications without listening to people like you and me. We've got to do all that foundational work before, hopefully, during, and then hopefully after, so that you can keep that up. But I think it's another tool in the weight management kit. But I do think it can be that weight loss is a side effect of the whole process too.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, you have in your list, how are vitamin C and choline related to this topic?
Oh, I meant vitamin C and vitamin J. I love talking about vitamin C and vitamin J, but they're not the vitamins that I'm talking about. I think vitamin C for me is community. I think it's so valued in the blue zones, which is, we're talking about longevity. We're talking about a purpose, ikigai, which is the term for purpose, I think, in parts of the Japanese culture, and which is where one of the blue zones was in Okinawa. So I think vitamin C for community, I just call it vitamin C. Like I don't know, it's fun. And vitamin J is joy. Joy is the purpose. C is the sense of belonging and something where you feel like you have a community. It doesn't have to be big or small. So I don't think it matters in terms of introverts, extroverts, enneagrams, whatever. You want a little bit of community in your life to feed your soul.
Yeah, I love that. So we've covered how the medications work. We covered that the medications are basically super doses. We talked about how the body creates much lower amounts of GLP-1, but to stimulate it, looks like polyphenols and fibers, etc., supporting gut health in general will increase GLP-1. Is this something you've put into? Have you had this conversation with a lot of your clients and said, do you want to do a really intentional experiment around upping fibers and polyphenols and see what the outcomes are?
We have some gut health people that we're not ready for that yet. So when we're past that, absolutely. And that has worked well. So you prep and treat and get to the root cause. And absolutely, people were able to readjust their dosing of all these different types of foods slowly into their diet and do really well. Now, weight, not specifically necessarily for weight. Not everybody's coming to me for weight. Most people are not actually, right? Sometimes, like I said, it's like a tertiary or later goal. It's not their primary or secondary goal often. If it is their primary or secondary goal, we have a discussion about whether we need to do, is that something you're interested in going down this pathway with the medication, or do we want to try to do everything else? And everybody's different on what they want to do.
I don't usually look at it through this lens, and I usually tell people, like, wait is very secondary. Like your body's got to feel safe to lose weight, aka your gut health's got to be in a good place, and many other things. Many other things, right? And so usually I discharge people when they've gotten to the maintenance part of they're tolerating fibers and doing all of those other things. But before we start to wrap up, I don't think there are, but it just popped into my head. Are there any other reasons people take these medications except for blood sugar originally and now for weight or specifically obesity, according to the FDA? Is there any other benefits or reasons that people take them or get prescribed them?
Yes, absolutely. And there are definitely practitioners out there, physicians out there that are prescribing these from a compounded pharmacies to be able to delicately titrate and adjust dosing to the person in front of them rather than necessarily going by what the FDA is dosing people at for their specific indication. So it is used off-label, but it's also used off-label for other things because GLP-1 receptors are found everywhere in the body. So on the heart, the brain, we already know what the pancreas and just everywhere, liver, etc. So I think there's just a lot more information coming out about that and more and more studies looking at, okay, specifically like how is this working for neuroinflammation or neurodegeneration or addictions or heart failure. So these are coming out. We have with the SELECT trial that was published last year. We should totally link to that. It is, in a way, it is a magical, beautiful drug. Again, we still have so much to learn about it, but it is moving the needle on metabolic disease and all kinds of metabolic disease. But then also the addiction piece, addictions, which is perhaps why we see that crushing of that hedonic urge when people take this medication, that food noise going away and those cravings. And I'm not saying that's necessarily the only approach, but we can't knock it and we can't disregard that these drugs are working on the brain somehow. And so much to learn about how that is happening. Yeah.
Yeah. When you mean its impact on addiction, do you mean mostly food addiction or is it being used for other addictions as well?
Other addictions, yeah. And then food addictions, I'm not comfortable with that in my practice by any means. I'm not an eating disorder specialist or anything like that. And I screen for that and refer out. But I have seen other practitioners using it for, I've seen data also on addictions, but not just food addictions, no.
Interesting. It's interesting. Right? It's this natural compound in the body that we're somehow manufacturing. I'm curious how they are manufacturing that. I don't know anything about that. So if you know anything, cool. I'm always like, I wish this podcast is called How Is It Made? Which already exists. I just want to know everything about how something's been made.
I know how for example, some things, I love sulforaphane as an upstream driver nutrigenomically for multiple pathways. This is how I'm connected with a lot of some of my peers and mentors are in the genomic space, nutrigenomic space. And I know how that's made by a couple of companies where they literally are taking fields of broccoli sprouts and putting them into these little capsules. It's like pounds and pounds of broccoli sprouts. So that's fascinating, but I don't know. I don't know about
how are we leveraging something that's already made in the body and then putting it in and superdosing. I have no idea. Maybe that's why there's a shortage. I'm not sure. Something to look into. Yeah. But I'm intrigued. It's always nice to have more options for things like neuroinflammation, which can be very debilitating. Obviously, heart failure. Obviously, addiction. Right? Yeah. If we have things that can be supportive, the question will be, are there any negatives? And the other question for us and for our client population, is there anything? Should I even care about this? And is there something to know about? What should I know about this? And can I do anything naturally? And the answer is yes.
Yeah, you can. I think this is the foundation of science. Like, I think, you must be asking questions. Like, whether you're a patient or a practitioner, medical, whatever, you should be asking questions and you should be, in my opinion, very open-minded to all of it as the science unfolds. And we're never going to have enough of the science. We certainly aren't going to have enough nutrition science. We can't do those studies easily. But we have to, healthy skepticism is really important. But that means that you're doing it in a healthy way, meaning you are thinking about all the options. I just invite your readers to just really ask the questions, be open-minded, and be thinking about you as a person, not the person on Instagram that's taking it or the person on Instagram that's not taking it. They don't know your labs. They don't know your family history. They don't know your psychosocial factors. They don't know who you live with. They don't know your Enneagram. I love Enneagram. I still haven't done mine, but my friends have told me what I am, and I have to do it because I think it's going to be a really good part of bringing this into my practice.
Yeah, we'll talk about that as soon as I press pause. This is my least favorite topic. Good. On this note, where can people find you online and learn more about you?
Yeah, we're on social media is Precision Gut Health. We have rebranded from Precision Metabolic Health because that's a lot of syllables, you guys. And I was just tired of saying the whole things. And I think gut and metabolism go hand in hand together. So it's the same practice, new name, Precision Gut Health. And that's our website too, precisionguthealth.com. Let's see, we have a cool freebie out on our website that is just a little gut health fun thing. And if you DM me on Precision Gut Health, I will send you a really cool guide on this. Just reminds me that I have this. So I haven't given it to anybody. So I'm going to give it to your readers because you talked about spices. So gut healing spices. So I'm going to get that for you guys.
Cool. Sounds good. Thanks so much for coming on today.
I gotta get myself a little more faith,